Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. So I thought I would do a favorite 2022 books, and I have a couple. I think six favorite books for 2022. Okay, so the first book, in no particular order by the way, is My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh. Yeah. As a fellow depressed and sleepy girly, I really resonated with the main character. Well, I know that everyone thinks that the main character is very dislikable. She's a liar, she's a terrible person, she's a manipulator. But for some reason I loved her. I loved how real she was and how non-perfect she was. Moshfegh does write about icky things people do and magnifies the cruel, dark things. That's why I love this author. The book is basically about a girl who is depressed. She's grieving and she just decides to sleep for a whole year. And yeah, that's the best way I can describe the book. By the way, I will also be reading maybe one quote, not my favorite, but a quote from each of the books. So, this was the beauty of sleep. Reality detached itself and appeared in my mind as casually as a movie or a dream. It was easy to ignore things that didn't concern me. Subway workers went on strike. A hurricane came and went. It didn't matter. Extraterrestrials could have invaded. Locusts could have swarmed, and I would have noted it, but I wouldn't have worried. So my next book is Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, Part 1. I loved this book much more than the movies. While it was very big, it felt like it went by really fast. I loved many parts of the book. The quest, the loyalty factors that it had, the hobbits and how they're usually the most overlooked, but they were indispensable when it came to doing the quest successfully. Like it was the forgotten race that was casually discarded, but in really times of need, which was the quest in Lord of the Rings, they were needed. The rich history and world building, the aesthetic of the elves, and the different languages, even the aesthetic of the Nazgûl. It was a really good book. I would not read it again. It was not an easy read, but I'm excited to read the second one. It's a masterpiece, but I'm not gonna read the second part anytime soon. I might do it with an audiobook, but not in physical form. Elrond summoned the hobbits to him. He looked gravely at Frodo. "The time has come," he said. "If the ring is to set out, it must go soon. But those who go with it must not count on their errand being aided by war or force. They must pass into the domain of the enemy far from aid. Do you still hold to your word, Frodo, that you will be the ring bearer?" "I do," said Frodo. "I will go with Sam." "Then I cannot help you much, not even with counsel," said Elrond. The next book is Veronica Decides to Die by Paulo Coelho. I love Paulo Coelho books. Well, I've only read two, but it's Paulo Coelho. It's really short. I think I read this in or I should say one day, but it took me, I think, 3 days, maybe a bit more, I don't know. But I could not put the book down once I started it. It's the best way I can describe it. It's that it's about death and life, and how knowing that you will die imminently completely changes your perception in life and how you go about living life, and your perspective. It's about Veronica, who tries to commit suicide and ends up in Valette. I think it is Valette. Yes, a psychiatric hospital. And don't want to say much more, but it's one of those books that really, really makes you think that you should value life more. And there's a movie. The movie was really good as well. So yeah, this book has really good quotes, so I'm gonna be reading 2 of them. The first one: no one can judge. Each person knows the extent of their own suffering, or the total absence of meaning in their lives. Veronica wanted to explain that, but instead she choked on the tube in her mouth, and the woman hurried to her aid. When she had achieved almost everything she wanted in life, she had reached the conclusion that her existence had no meaning, because every day was the same, and she had decided to die. It's kind of dark, but it's also not really dark. The next book is Laughter in the Dark by Vladimir Nabokov. This is the first Nabokov book I read. It's a parable of idealistic blindness and how some people are born to deceive and some people are born to be deceived. What I loved the most was the writing, of course. The story was not that great, but the writing was beautiful. So I will look at some quotes now that I have highlighted. Alongside of these feeble romances, there had been hundreds of girls of whom he had dreamed, but whom he had never got to know. They had just slid past him, living for a day or two, that hopeless sense of loss, which makes beauty what it is, a distant lone tree against golden heavens. Ripples of light of the inner curve of a bridge, a thing quite impossible to capture. He married, but though he loved Elizabeth after a manner, she failed to give him the thrill for which he had grown weary with longing. The next book is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, and I got this thrifted. Well, most of the books that I have are thrifted. Lord of the Rings, Laughter in the Dark, Veronica Decides to Die, and this one are secondhand. But this one specifically is really old. I hate to say that I love this book because of the racist remarks that it has. However, I am also aware that the book was written in a certain time frame, and that it was in 2022. So with that in mind, I really liked this book. It's gorgeous writing. Plath was obviously skilled with imagery and capable of creating poetry out of anything. I love the metaphor of the bell jar, of feeling like a bell jar is closing you, and obviously the figs parable as well, which I will read that quote if I can find it. But I saw my life branching out before me like the green fig tree in the story. From the tip of every branch, like a fat purple fig, a wonderful future beckoned and winked. One fig was a husband and a happy home and children, and another fig was a famous poet, and another fig was a brilliant professor, and another fig was the Iggy, the amazing editor, and another fig was Europe and Africa and South America, and another fig was Constantine and Socrates and Attila and a pack of other lovers with queer names and offbeat professions. And another fig was an Olympic lady, crew champion, and beyond and above these figs were many more figs I couldn't quite make out. I saw myself sitting in the crotch of this fig tree, starving to death, just because I couldn't make up my mind which of the figs I would choose. I wanted each and every one of them, but choosing one meant losing all the rest. And as I sat there, unable to decide, the figs began to wrinkle and go black, and one by one, they plopped to the ground at my feet. Finally, my last one from the list is A Secret History by Donna Tartt. I feel like everyone at this point, everyone knows what this book is about. Dark academia aesthetics. I went into this book not knowing anything about what this book is about. I bought it because people were reading it and it was very popular, so I was very curious as to what is it about, and I think that's the best way to go into the book. So I'm not gonna give much information apart from how the main character wants nothing more than to immerse and lose himself with this group of wealthy students and ultimately become them. I don't even know if I'm really selling the book, but I feel like out of all of them, this would be my favorite book of the year. I know, very basic, but it was amazing, as you can see. And now I will find a quote out of all of this that are tagged. So let's see. So the quote that I'll be reading is a bit of the prologue and a bit of the first chapter, which I feel like are the most iconic and what the book is mostly known about. Chapter 1. There's such a thing as the fatal flaw, the showy, dark crack running down the middle of a life, exists outside literature. I used to think it didn't. Now I think it does. And I think that mine is this: a morbid longing for the picturesque at all costs. The snow in the mountains was melting, and Bunny had been dead for several weeks before we came to understand the gravity of our situation. He'd been dead for 10 days before they found him, you know? So these are my favorite books from 2022. And yeah, I can't wait to read more in 2023. I'm currently reading Fire and Blood by George R.R. Martin, and it's what the show House of the Dragon is based on. It's really good, very long though, but yeah, I'm excited to finish it as well. This is all I have for now. I hope you enjoy, and yeah, see you in the next video.